Have you always loved music?
Oh yeah, music has always been a part of my life from an early time when my mom would throw dance parties in the kitchen. It's just gotten to a point now where I do it all the time, do it every day, so it's been integrated.
Wish I could rewind back to the start. You got me hiding, driving me low. You got there's something I can seem to know.
Sean, thank you so much for having us here today. It's a pleasure to be in your studio and home.
Happy to have you here.
All right, so I want to get started with talking about your stage name, Nine Life. Where did that originate from?
So I got my stage name from my brother, actually. I was driving home with my dad and brother one day, and I was asking them if they could give me a name. If it had to do with cats, that would be a bonus. And my brother just said Nine Life, and that stuck.
That's awesome. I love that there's a little family tie to that as well.
Yeah,
That's
for
great.
sure.
So how did you come up with your sound in your like electronic music? Like what were your influences and stuff?
So I came up with my sound from an early stage, I guess. I was very influenced from Daft Punk and Skrillex and Justice and those kind of big acts.
Yeah, sweet.
And so I actually got involved with this online coaching producer community back in 2020. And it basically taught the mantra of quantity to get to quality. And so I've developed a daily music making practice where I'll just let things out and not judge it in the moment. And it's become kind of a good pathway for me to discover sounds that really work for what I do and help me get the most enjoyment out of the process.
That's great, yeah. I heard you mentioned 2020 in there as well. Did the pandemic have any effect on your music making process?
Yeah, the pandemic had a big part to play for the music and where it's come to now.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was a time for me to really start to feel like I was connected because we were all kind of going through the same thing, and I was able to use those times of solitude and loneliness, I guess, to develop and express my emotions through the music. And I also had a lot of free time.
Yeah,
we all did.
definitely.
So.
So what are your thoughts on the Victorian music industry? I know you've lived here most of your life, so.
Yeah, so the Victorian music industry to me seems like it's definitely going places. There's some quite big bands starting to develop their sounds and get their fan bases built. I've got the Banks brothers just living in my neighborhood. I've got a producer house that I visit pretty much weekly at this point, and they're developing their second studio at this point. So yeah, there's lots of artists to work with and lots of promise.
That's great. It's nice just having this community and other people involved, right?
For sure.
Absolutely. So you played your first live show back in the summer. How was that?
Yeah, so I played my first live show at Victoria Event Center and did it with Joy Canopy. I was opening for him. It was a great learning experience. I was able to take those in the moment crowd reactions and use that as feedback towards my process, and it's helped me to develop future shows that I'm going to be working on this year.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. I know nature is something that's really important to you. What are the benefits of coming out here and stepping away from the studio for a bit?
Yeah, so I think it's important to detach ourselves from our creations, give ourselves time to get new perspective and new inputs, new ideas to try with our ideas later on.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think it's just huge because we can spend too much time overthinking and ruminating on a single idea when it's important to just get away from it and come back to it with a fresh set of ears. And
Absolutely.
often you'll get a lot better perspective on your idea by that point.
So I want to touch on some struggles that you faced in the music industry. With marketing and networking, I know it can be quite difficult. What are some struggles that you face in general?
Yeah, so struggles to do with releasing music. I find can overthink things and often decide not even to release things.
Okay.
And there's also the factor of putting it out there to kind of the empty crowd kind of thing and you don't get any response.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of got to do it for ourselves and do it because we love the art.
Yeah, I guess there's always that fear putting something out in the world and knowing how it may be perceived. But I guess if you love it, that's what matters, right?
That's all that matters, really. I mean, we don't have control over how our art is perceived. We only have control over what the result is.
Exactly.
Which is the music itself.
Yeah. I guess that's a prime example of just someone as devoted to the craft as you are, and just people don't branch out enough and don't have access to this, right? It's very hard to find new artists.
It's true, and people can get set in their ways of listening to similar artists or only a few artists that they really like. And
Absolutely, yeah.
so convincing them to try you out is another
Yeah.
whole bag of unpredictability and yeah,
Trying new styles of music and all that, yeah.
it all comes down to just a lot of luck and a lot of timing, and yeah, it's a lot of the art once you put it out is out of our control.
Exactly. I'm sure if you could make music more often, would you?
You know, I would make music more often if I could. I've got a full-time job at the moment and another part-time job I'm working on, and it gives me definitely a limited time to do this. But I do take advantage of it and I'm still doing a daily music practice and working more on finishing music a lot recently.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I guess it takes a lot of time when you're working a full-time job and you can only do it in your spare hours.
It's true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's always other parts of life to attend to as well. So
Exactly.
music sometimes isn't the top priority every day, but I do still make sure I get at least something done each day music-wise.
Well, it keeps it more special as well, right, when you do it not all the time.
It does. You really savor those times when you get to
Exactly.
do it.
If you could perform more, would you?
You know, honestly, I'm quite happy focusing on the production for now, and I think if someday it gets to a point where there's more show opportunities available, I will take them, but I don't see any main focus being getting a bunch of shows at this point.
That's
It's more about just finding the concepts I want to build from and really focusing on the music.
That's fair, yeah. After briefly speaking so far, like, I feel like you would never really crave that superstar level that some artists achieve. I feel like you're very rooted in yourself and the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really trying not to focus on the result in this whole thing. I'm making the main focus the process and just getting the most enjoyment out of it and making music that I can stand behind and feel proud of. and leave
Absolutely.
behind. Yeah.
Have you collaborated with many other artists, locally or otherwise?
Yeah, actually, I've collaborated with several artists. There's Flake Music, got Low Alamode, who's co-producing tracks with me, and I've got Sasha Enns doing some drums. He's the drummer for the Banks Brothers there.
Nice.
And then got Rhea George, who used to be in a band with Sasha Enns. She's doing vocals and songwriting with me. And then, of course, Joy Canopy, who
Oh, yes.
I did my first show with back in
Yeah.
September with. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, this is absolutely beautiful, but I think it's about time to return to the studio, hey?
I agree, let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, thanks again for allowing us to go out there. That was absolutely beautiful.
It's my pleasure, man. Stoked to get out there.
Good stuff. Let's get back to the conversation at hand. So looking forward to the future, how do you want to grow your brand and your music? Where do you see yourself going next?
So going forward in the future, I want to work on putting out, I've got actually an EP that's just about ready to go right now. Got an album in the works.
Nice.
And I'm collaborating with quite a few artists locally. So lots of music kind of in the works, and I plan on just continuing to collaborate, continuing to network, and just building the sound from here.
That's great. Yeah. Do you have any advice for any people passionate about starting in music?
I'd say just start going for it. If you want to get started with music, then the best place to start is just buying or even getting a free trial for any software. Most software nowadays, you can get like a 30-day free trial. There's lots of like apps as well where you can make music on the go. I like to do that pretty much every day. I'm making a beat on the go. So really, you can start with no knowledge, no experience, and just kind of build your knowledge as you go. That's kind of the best way I've found.
That's great. That's awesome. And finally, I just got to ask you, where do you see yourself and your music in 2 to 3 years?
So in the next 2 or 3 years with my music, I see it just growing and putting on more shows. I plan on doing like house parties here to test music out and just network with artists, and hopefully just build a little community around here where you can kind of share each other's music and build each other up.
Man, well, that's excellent to hear. Thank you so much again for having us here today. I really hope that the future's bright for you. You seem really devoted to your craft, and I believe in you for the future.
I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming out and do this with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.